1 in 4 women and 1 in 71 men will be raped in their lifetime. In 8 out of 10 cases, the victim knew their assaulter. In 1 year, over 300,000 women will experience rape, not including other forms of sexual assault. Every year, 1.27 million women of all ages will be raped. Women in sororities are 74% more likely to be raped, and it is 3 times more likely for those living in their sorority house to be raped. Only 11% of women report their cases to the police. Of those cases reported, only 10% of rape cases result in criminal charges against the assaulter. In 2012, Clemson had 2 forcible sex offenses reported, but in 2014 it had 12. This is an extremely prevalent problem on college campuses nationwide, and as we have discovered, it is an issue for Clemson too. To investigate the issue further, we spoke with Megan Fallon, an interpersonal violence prevention coordinator for Clemson's campus. Here she explains what Clemson's campus is doing and work to minimize the issue.
The more we can get people coming to events that we have, the more people can understand the breadth of the issue and have real conversation about it and engage in the topic. People are more likely to care about something when they understand it differently. And online courses, that's one of the drawbacks. You could do that and click through, and you're not really engaging the same way. So,
to look into how effective Clemson's approach is, we wanted to see if people were actually stepping up and reporting their assaults. For Megan personally, we were curious to see how she was approached by victims.
Often. When you do trainings and different educational programs, people have a face to go to.
Although this may be true for Clemson's campus, nationwide 68% of assaults are not reported. So what happens to these victims? Are the resources offered really enough? Or is what we are doing just sugarcoating the rooted problem at hand? As students at Clemson, we would not know how, where, or what to report. With that, Megan explains the actions that Clemson takes and the different ways to report.
There's a few different options. There's lots of different options, actually. It depends on what people think reporting is and what they're considering reporting. There's criminal reporting, which is with the police, obviously. And that's not the same as Title IX reporting. So if somebody comes forward for a Title IX case, they don't necessarily have to have a criminal case.
Although Megan claims that she is approached by victims often, and Clemson is providing these various ways to report the issue, it is not reflective of the amount of assaulters who are actually being punished for their actions.
From FBI crime statistics and the Bureau of Justice reported statistics, and basically out of 100 rapes, there's like 3 that will ever serve jail time. And in 13 years of doing violence prevention work and advocacy work with survivors of sexual assault, I've only ever seen 1 perpetrator convicted.
Where do you go?
Somebody could report to a confidential resource, and our confidential resources are anybody in our medical field, so anybody at Redfern's confidential. But specifically CAPS is the best resource for confidentiality purposes, and they could help students if they didn't know which direction they wanted to go in. They can help them navigate all those resources. The point behind the Title IX reporting is really so that the school can show that it's taken action to address and eliminate any sort of hostile environment.
Every freshman is required to participate in an educational course with Title IX. Really, how effective is this? Asking college students to take 2 hours out of their day for something that is not directly benefiting them is hard, especially when it's online. This program is so easy to click through without obtaining any of its crucial information, and it makes it hard to know where to go when help is actually needed.
I think when somebody is in a place of trauma, resources will always feel very difficult to navigate.
Yes, it is hard to find where to go when someone is traumatized, but the Title IX education still proves to be ineffective. There needs to be an interactive course where students hear from victims and past assaulters so that this problem can be real, not something far away in cyberspace.
trial of Mr. Smith, where Mr. Smith is, walking down the street at night and he's mugged, is basically the story. And the questions that the defense attorney is asking this person, like, well, why were you walking at night? Have you given money before? So why wouldn't that person think that you would give money then? And, so those kinds of questions are the kinds of questions that people ask survivors all the time. And it's not always in the reporting process, but certainly can be. It's sad, it's re-traumatizing, and it's something that I feel very strongly that we need to correct.
It is crucial that the people who are supposed to be helping these victims are trained correctly. They are setting the ground for the victim's whole recovery process. If they say or do anything wrong, it can prevent them from stepping up and receiving the justice they deserve.
Sexual assault is one of those crimes where along the way, there could be any number of people that react poorly, and that could keep that survivor from accessing any more resources further. So that's why it's so important.
The Dear Colleague letter of 2011
And in that letter, it was basically like all y'all in higher ed are really screwing this up letter. In 2001, they had issued a guidance about sexual assault and sexual harassment that said a lot of the language behind it was like, campuses should use preponderance of the evidence as the standard. Campuses should consider every sexual assault a hostile environment. This 2011 letter really changed the way higher ed looks at Title IX because it went from should to must. And if you don't, you could lose your federal funding, which is what most people rely on to help students pay their tuition and lots of grants and things like that. So once that was threatened a little bit, I mean, I wouldn't say threatened, but it was really enforced, schools had to change their processes.
South Carolina has been rated the #1 state in the country for women killed by men, and this has been the third time that this state has been ranked #1. A lot of this has to do with the prevalence of sexual assault and the lack of sex education.
I think one of the challenges of where Clemson is, and I'm not saying this to be nasty, but we are in the Bible Belt, and there isn't a whole lot of sex ed before college, and I think that has an effect too, because if you can't talk about healthy sexual decision making in an open setting, how are you supposed to talk about consent and how to get it if nobody's talking to you about even how to ask to have sex?